Is President Obama setting the wrong example about how serious COVID-19 is by hosting a big birthday party with hundreds of people this week?
I would note first that former President Obama has been a huge advocate of individuals getting vaccinated. This event, according to all the public reporting, is outdoors and in a moderate zone.
So it's okay with them. The White House playing defense over former President Obama's upcoming 60th birthday party this weekend. He's set to host 500 guests, have a couple of hundred employees servicing drinks and whatnot at his Martha's Vineyard mansion.
That's right. This as President Biden addresses the nation today to try and clear up the ongoing confusion over CDC's changing guidelines.
Texas GOP Congressman Dan Crenshaw is here to react to the double standard. Good morning to you, Congressman.
Hey, good morning to y'all.
Good morning. Your fellow friend, Nicole Malliotakis, I thought what she said was interesting. She said, just like President Obama, every American should have the right to celebrate their milestones without arbitrary government mandates and interference. But we all know if this were President Trump, the left would be screaming. What do you say?
Yeah, I think that's about right. Look, I'm pro-birthday party and happy birthday to the former president.
That's right.
But we're not going to ignore the hypocrisy here, okay? And this has consistently been the case with the left. I mean, you saw it with the mayor of D.C. just recently, right after imposing mandates, they went and broke them. This was the case with Governor Newsom. Now this is the case with President Obama. This is what they do. It's rules for thee and not for me. And I think that's what really frustrates Americans. They've been told they have to lock down. They've been told they have to lose their jobs and suck it up. And they've been told that there might never be an end to a lot of these mandates and hardships. And you know what? We have enough information now that you can live responsibly and that you can assess your own risk. You have access to a vaccine. The vaccine is extremely effective. And so we can live with this. And it is time for the Democrats to stop creating such uncertainty with the American people, with our economy. I don't know why they do it. I think it's highly politicized. And when something is highly politicized, they tend to not rely on truth. They don't rely on objective truth. This is why they don't give you the full context of data. This is why they rely on cherry-picking studies to impose new mask mandates. You know, studies from India that weren't peer-reviewed properly. And then when that failed, they went to Provincetown and took an extreme outlier of statistical data to try and justify their mask mandates. So they really need to stop and actually start getting objective with the science.
Well, you know, and Congressman, regarding the science, because particularly the White House and things that were said by the administration over the last couple of weeks regarding these breakthrough cases, now people are going, well, wait a minute. I was told if I got the shot, I wouldn't have to wear the mask. And now I'm hearing about these breakthrough cases. Maybe the vaccine doesn't really work as well as the administration told us. And that apparently is why the headline in the New York Times today is Americans suffer pandemic whiplash. And the president's apparently going to go on TV again this afternoon from the East Room and try to explain, okay, the vaccine works really good. Let's get as many people vaccinated as possible.
Yeah, and this whiplash has caused more uncertainty with the vaccine than any Facebook conspiracy ever could have.
Yeah. Okay.
So look, they're relying on bad data. Again, they used a study from India that was studying a vaccine that's not even approved in the U.S. All right. When that failed, they took a smaller study out of Provincetown. By the way, only 4 of those vaccinated people were even hospitalized. 2 of them had underlying conditions. That is not and that was also a very intimate festival where people were spreading that disease, so to speak. And so it is not a representation of the rest of America at all. And yet they use that to impose wide-ranging policy on everybody, which is crazy. It will reduce vaccine uptake, which is not good. The vaccine is actually extremely effective. Yep. I think it's actually more effective. I mean, if you look at hospitalizations as a percentage of how many people have actually had the vaccine, it's 99.99% effective. That's extremely effective. And it's still very effective against the Delta variant from keeping you sick. Okay, that's what effectiveness means for a vaccine.
Congressman, I've got to ask you about the border. We've been covering it all morning long. The numbers for July are staggering as far as the number of illegal encounters, and that doesn't even include gotaways. CDC has now extended Title 42, which does give the Biden administration the ability to deport people or send people back who may be at risk of infecting the population. Yet we're hearing mayor after mayor and others saying COVID is coming across the border, and the Biden administration is doing nothing about it. What's your take on the border situation right now?
Well, it's not that they're doing nothing. I think they're actually taking quite a few actions that deliberately make it worse. I mean, that's what they've been doing. I mean, from the moment they took office, they got rid of the migrant protection protocols. They got rid of the asylum cooperation agreements with the Northern Triangle countries. These two policies that Trump had in place were single-handedly solving the border crisis because it disincentivized people to come across and make these false claims of asylum. Okay, the vast majority, everybody knows, are not asylum seekers. They are economic migrants. They're not bad people, but they are people who are just cutting the line. And look, we can't help everybody around the world, so we have to have a system in place. And you have to prioritize that system. You have to help the neediest first, and there has to be some kind of standard for doing so. That's why we have an asylum process. But the Biden administration is deliberately breaking it. They want this to happen. I don't know what the other explanation might be. So, unfortunately, they have taken actions, and those actions are directly in violation of Biden's constitutional duties to execute the law. And it's infuriating. There's already been at least 50,000 people just released into the interior of the U.S. Only 13% of them reportedly haven't even checked in with an immigration official. This is unconscionable. Okay, he's destroying the sovereignty of America, and he's doing so deliberately. The Democrats are doing so deliberately, and they really need to pay for this in the elections. I can't believe we can't put up with this much longer.
Congressman, Pete's about to interview a Gold Star father that's coming up right after we interview you about Fallen Angel, which is a documentary that is being released. It's about Extortion 17 and the shocking true story of what really happened to those Navy SEALs. And we wanted to get your take on that since you have served our country as well.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the day it happened. It was our greatest loss of life in the entire Afghanistan war. And it's tragic, and we'll never forget them. We toasted those guys often in the teams, and all I can say to them and their families is we'll never forget.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. Almost 10 years ago, August 6, 2011, the film comes out. We're talking about it. Hopefully we'll get to the bottom of it as well. And as a Navy SEAL, I know it hits home for you, Representative Crenshaw.
And he's going to be busy. Congressman Crenshaw is going to be speaking at the Young Americans Foundation 43rd National Conservative Student Conference this Friday, streaming live and on demand at Fox Nation through Friday. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, sir.